The most insane ways men escape from prison.
For many, the thought of prison is enough to keep them on the straight and narrow.
Facts.
But for others,
That's me.
prison
That's me. Just the thought of it. Just the thought. The thought of having to share the same toilet with somebody. The thought of having to be naked with other men. That's enough. Nothing else. That's all you had to tell me. I have to be naked. I have to take showers with other men. Nope. Yep. I'm gonna be a good boy.
is merely a consequence of their chosen lifestyle. And for a select few, prison is nothing more than a challenge, a puzzle begging to be solved. Today, we'll look at some of the more creative escapes in this episode of the Infographic Show, The Greatest Prison Escapes in History. We're starting off with a classic, fictionalized by Hollywood into the film The Great Escape starring Steve McQueen, though the real story is fraught with far more drama than what could fit on the silver screen. In World War II, the prisoner of war camp known as Stalag Luft III was thought to be the most secure POW camp in Europe. Hundreds of miles southeast of Berlin, it was located deep in enemy territory and featured a host of security features meant to make it difficult to escape from. Along with barbed wire fences, the Germans had sunk microphones.
It's only World War II. You know, they weren't too intelligent back then. I probably would have found my way to maneuver out, to be honest. Yeah, World War II, they weren't good up here. I'll let you know
10
that.
feet deep into the soil all along the perimeter in order to detect the sound of digging. The prisoners' huts were all built on stilts, raised up
Why
above.
all these men got such thick breasts? Voluptuous breasts. Oh my... Oh, man.
The ground, so any tunnel would be immediately visible. Lastly, the sandy soil made it nearly impossible to dig through, threatening collapse at any moment. Yet none of these
Someone in
things
chat said,
stopped
"Oh
a
my
band of
stars."
British, Canadian, Australian, French, and American airmen from attempting an escape anyways. The
Oh my
plan was to
stars
build
is insane.
3 tunnels codenamed Tom, Dick, and Harry, using only metal silverware and milk tin cans.
I call Dick. I want to go through that one.
The prisoners painstakingly chipped away at the building support columns of 3 different huts in order to avoid being seen working underneath them. They accessed their below-floor workspace via a secret trapdoor over which they kept a heating stove permanently lit in order to discourage any Nazi guards from getting too close.
Okay.
In order to solve the microphone problem, the escapees dug their tunnels a whopping 30 feet deep, excavating an astonishing 100 tons of sand, all by hand.
100 tons of sand. All by hand. Now, who you expect to believe this? Not me. 100 tons? How many soldiers was there? I wasn't listening good enough, I guess. But how many? You said you were there, believe you? Okay, no, someone in chat was there. Never mind. They did this.
To avoid raising suspicion, the excavated sand was concealed in stuffed socks, which they would sprinkle discreetly on garden soil being raked by other prisoners. To shore up their tunnel walls,
I mean, only because someone in chat saw this happen, I'm gonna believe it. But the fact that they would dig up and then they would just dump it in like the yard and scrape it into the soil, and they did that with 100 tons, blasphemous. But someone in chat was there, so.
the prisoners stripped 4,000 wooden bedboards and then lined each tunnel with 1,700 blankets to muffle the sounds of digging. They converted discarded milk tins into lamps with wicks made from pajama cords, and burned in mutton fat the prisoners skimmed off the greasy soup they were served. Stealing a few hundred feet of electrical wire, the prisoners even managed to fashion their own work lights, which they plugged directly into the camp's electrical supply. And if that's not enough ingenuity,
So they
the
were
prisoners
nerds.
also created an air
I
pump
would've just ran
using
out.
hockey sticks and other discarded bits of trash, and even
I
built
would've
an
just ran out
underground
for real.
trolley system to transport the excavated sand. On March 24th, 1944, the prisoners finally made their escape. Forced to move one by one through the cramped tunnels, barely a dozen managed to make it out per hour, and at one point, a 1-hour blackout during an air raid further slowed the escape attempt. At around 5 a.m., however, disaster struck, with a Nazi guard on patrol nearly falling into the exit shaft of one of the 3 tunnels and discovering the plot. A
Which one
massive
was it?
manhunt was mobilized, and eventually the Germans recovered 73 of the 76 escapees. 3, however, would make it to safety.
Y'all are trash. Y'all are garbage.
69,420 cheered. X100. What is your opinion on women?
They're mid.
2 Norwegians who stowed away on a freighter to Sweden, and a Dutchman who made his way to Gibraltar by rail and foot. A furious Hitler ordered the execution of 50 of the escapees, violating the Geneva Convention. Years after the war, a military
They moved
tribunal
100 tons of sand just to get caught. That's insane, bro.
found 18 Nazi soldiers guilty of war crimes for shooting the recaptured POWs, and 13 of them were executed. As one of the largest manhunts in American history, the prison escape of the Texas 7 in December of 2000 made headlines around the world. On December 13, 2000, the 7 inmates convinced a maintenance supervisor to let them skip lunch so they could wax the floors of the maintenance room. Distracting the supervisor, one of the inmates knocked him unconscious with a blow to the back of the head, then undressed him, tied him up, and locked him in an electrical room.
Okay. I hope that's all they did. You know, they are in prison. I hope that's it. There might be parts of the story that's missing, but we're going to keep it pushing.
During this time, 3 other inmates, 4 prison guards, and 9 supervisors wandered into the room, and incredibly, all were subdued by the inmates. That's when the Texas
yeah, of
7
course.
put their plan into action. By impersonating various supervisors over the telephone, the inmates got out of 12 head counts, and then making their way to the gatehouse, incredibly conned their way inside by pretending to be monitor installers.
Okay.
Once inside the gatehouse, the prisoners subdued the lone guard and got his firearm along with a few other weapons from a weapons cache.
Where he's
then
at?
the prisoners
Where's
opened the
he
back
at?
gate
Did he
and
die?
drove their way out in a stolen pickup truck, launching a multi-state manhunt that would be one of the largest in American history. Eventually found, thanks in part
For 12 people, like, just get over it.
to the television program America's Most Wanted, the prisoners even demanded a TV appearance before they would agree to surrender. In the end, no such appearance would be granted, and all of the 7 were brought back into custody. There's
Y'all
never
still got clapped. Y'all's over here demanding, I demand to be put on Ellen the DeGeneres and Steve Harvey morning show. If these needs are not met, we are not surrendering, okay? Like, bruh, no one wants to see you on fucking Ellen, bruh.
Never been a more iconic prison in history than Alcatraz, and naturally, it is the setting for our greatest prison escape story. A lifelong criminal, Frank Morris was serving a 10-year stint for bank robbery when he broke out of the Louisiana State Penitentiary, only to be recaptured a year later and sent to Alcatraz. Ranked in the top 2% of the population in intelligence and with an IQ of 133, Morris paid no
Top 2%. You can't be that smart if you in prison. The fuck? You would think if he's so smart, he wouldn't be in Alcatraz, but I guess I'm tripping.
heed to Alcatraz's reputation as an inescapable prison and quickly went to work developing an escape plan. Partnering with brothers John and Clarence Anglin and car thief Alan West, the 4 prisoners discovered an unguarded utility corridor that ran just behind their cells, which housed a ventilation shaft to the roof. Utilizing scavenged saw blades, spoons stolen from the commissary, and even a home-built drill made from the motor of a broken vacuum cleaner, the 4 gradually widened the
Nerds.
ventilation duct opening in each of their cells. The holes were concealed using cardboard and paint, and Morris's accordion provided cover for the sound of their work. Once inside the utility corridor, the 4 climbed to the roof of their cell block and set up a small workshop there. Using stolen and donated materials, the 4 made makeshift life preservers using 50 raincoats from a design they had seen in an issue of Popular Mechanics. They also used the raincoats to create a 6 by 14-foot rubber raft and used a small accordion-like concertina they stole from another inmate as a bellows to inflate the raft.
They're not escaping on this, bro. They probably escaped for 5 days and they saw some random yellow boat in the middle of the water, and you just have the people in helicopters going, I see a banana in the water. Is it the Minions? Like, no. This is before the Minions time. What is this? There's some monkeys in the banana. Like, I don't know, bro.
Their paddles were made from scrap wood and stolen
They're a
screws.
5-minute
On the
craft.
night of June 11th, 1962, the men began their escape. Of the 4, though, Alan West was unable to leave his cell, having used cement to shore up the crumbling concrete around the vent opening in his cell, which threatened to give him away. Once dried, the cement
Damn.
narrowed the escape hole and fixed the steel grill in place, and by the time he had re-widened his hole and removed the grill, the others had already left without it. The other 3 inmates climbed the ventilation shaft to the roof, then hauled their homemade life preservers
Yeah,
and
I mean, that's why you can't trust these prisoners, man. Shit, you know, there's no loyalty in prison. I know that firsthand. I remember the first day I was in, you know, shit. It's some crazy news in prison now.
50 feet down a kitchen vent pipe to the ground, and then scaled 2 12-foot barbed wire fences, somewhere along the northeast shoreline of Alcatraz, where the prison's
Don't mind me, bro. I'm getting distracted by my mom abusing dogs.
network of searchlights and gun towers had a blind spot. The men inflated their raft and then rowed into the dense fog, trying to reach Angel Island 2 miles to the north. In the ensuing manhunt, police would recover one of the paddles and bits of raft and life preservers, but no sign of the men. With their stated plan having been to steal clothing in a car and no vehicle or clothing thefts reported in the area after the escape, the police finally concluded that in all likelihood, the men drowned in the strong currents and frigid waters of San Francisco Bay. These are some pretty insane ways
So they didn't escape. They died.
to escape from prison. You know what else is insane? Paying somebody hundreds of dollars or spending weeks
They died. So like I said, they escaped for 5 hours and now they're dead.